Okay. We were talking about this marvelous flow of energy, and we had talked about how all this energy is able to do this work, and we had said the work that is more easily visualized would be that thing of flexing your muscles. But most of the work that's going to be done is going to involve things like creating other molecules. And it's harder to relate to, but hopefully you understand this is what drives it. So we have what we call metabolic pathways. And so there's all kinds of chemical reactions that are going on all the time in your cells. And I used to occasionally watch these old movies, from when I was young. So that's like really old for you. But in the old movies, they'd always have like the local college, and they seem to always be in a chemistry class. I think it's because there's visuals you can use. And so when you'd be watching these young kids in school, they would always be in this chemical class with old Doc Sullivan, and he'd be standing at the front of the room, and he'd have like a Bunsen burner going, and there'd be something bubbling away on the desk in front of him. So a Bunsen burner, it's a gas burner. So anyway, he'd have a gas burner going with a container in front of it, and it would be bubbling away, bubble, bubble, bubble. Okay, and you'd say, well, what's going on? And I already told you, it's chemistry. So of course he was trying to create something, right? So he was doing a chemical reaction. And in order to do that, he had to add heat. And so why is that? Because we said these chemical reactions require energy for them to happen. Now, when we think about biological entities like you and me, I don't want them putting a Bunsen burner underneath me, right? And I'm sure you don't either. And we don't have to. Oh, so good. We don't have to, right? And why is that? Well, it's what I wrote on the board up there. What I wrote on the board up there is that proteins have a three-dimensional shape, and more importantly, some proteins are enzymes, and more importantly, enzymes catalyze chemical reactions. What does that mean? Makes them happen, like adding heat. It's the same. It has the same effect as adding heat, but you don't need the Bunsen burner underneath your backside, right? So you don't need the Bunsen burner in order to have the chemical reaction. So this is how all that stuff I was talking about, all of the chemical reactions of life that are driven by ATP, the energy, it's coupled with an enzyme. So we talked about a couple of reactions. So we have reactants, an enzyme, and then this heat, this ATP energy. So you don't need the burner. And so what happens is this. We said that some proteins are enzymes, and they have a three-dimensional shape. And that three-dimensional shape is required for them to do their job. And what is their job? Their job is to speed up, catalyze chemical reactions. So here, I've got it on the board, and I'm going to walk you through it. We have A and B. So think of old Doc Sullivan with the bubbling thing full of A and B, and what he's trying to do is to produce D, where A and B have combined together, covalently bonded. But we said with him, he just adds heat, and they kind of bounce around, and they say, pop, they produce D. You and I, we can't do that, and I don't want them doing that. Instead, we use a protein, and on that protein that has a three-dimensional shape, we have what we call an active site. And what is the active site for? Well, it's the place where A and B come together and then they react. So when the A and B sit on the active site of the enzyme, they're caused to react to produce D. And so they have catalyzed a chemical reaction and that didn't require heat. So what do we say about this? We say that enzymes reduce the energy required for what they call the activation energy for a chemical reaction. Let me say that again. Enzymes reduce the activation energy required for a chemical reaction. How do they do it? By holding the reactants together on their active site. You don't need the heat. It's not that you can't add heat to a bobcat or you and me. You just can't do it. So this is how chemical reactions are controlled in living systems. The reactants or substrates are held together and they end up producing a product. Those are the terms that you will see here on the slides. So the active site is the point where those reactants come together, and when they sit there, we call it the induced fit model. So as soon as they sit on that spot, it like pushes them in together. It changes the shape of the enzyme, which causes them to react to produce D. And then what happens? D bubbles off, and we're left with the enzyme. And what is it going to do? It's going to do it again. So enzymes do their job multiple times. And we have a beautiful picture here on number 16, which is showing all of this. And hey, that's the end of today's lecture. I hope you guys are doing well. Remember, here at some point, you're going to want to take exam 1 because, as you can see, life goes on and we're going to add more and more. So anyway, we'll talk about this on Thursday. Have a good day. See you guys.